The game of life is not played with outer things. It is played with the invisible laws of the Spirit. When man aligns his word with divine law, all things are added unto him, including wealth. Money is not a material chase, it is a spiritual magnet. To receive daily supply with grace and ease, one must first master the unseen forces that govern all abundance. Money obeys spiritual law as surely as the tide obeys the moon. There is an invisible order that governs supply and demand, and that order is not arbitrary. It is founded upon the divine principle that responds to the attitude of the soul. Money is not a thing to be wrestled from the world by frantic striving. It is an expression of harmony between mind and infinite intelligence. When you understand that the current of abundance flows according to law, you cease to push against it and begin to align with it. Every desire for wealth must pass through the gateway of spiritual law. If you try to take by force, you meet resistance, because force opposes the very rhythm of the divine. But if you align your thought, word, and feeling with the law, believing rightly, speaking rightly, and acting with calm expectancy, then the law bends itself to your demand and brings money, as naturally as a tree brings forth fruit in its season. There is no arbitrary scarcity in the universe. There is only misalignment between the human will and the divine order. The law does not favor the loudest cry or the most elaborate plan. It responds to the inner state. A person filled with fear, worry, and impatience sends out discordant vibrations, and money cannot settle in a field where the soil is troubled. But the one who trusts, who knows deep within that supply is already provided, lays a smooth path for abundance. The law hears the unshaken belief and moves to fulfill it. It is not the amount of effort alone that opens the door. It is the attunement of the heart to the source. No, this lack is not an absence in the divine, but a misunderstanding in the human. Divine substance is infinite and ever-present. It has not withdrawn. Man's conception of limitation is what blinds him. When one puts his faith in the spiritual law, he stands in the current of supply. He does not beg, he commands in the name of right order, and the law obeys because it is made to serve the one who knows how to use it. There is a rhythm to giving and receiving, and when you live in harmony with that rhythm, money comes without struggle, daily and constantly. Many speak of money as if it were a separate entity, a thing outside of them to be won or lost. Yet it is a reflection of the inner abundance. When the consciousness is filled with gratitude, generosity, and steadfast expectation, the outer manifestation cannot help but correspond. The law of circulation is in effect. What you send out returns, and what you hold back tightens the current. To hoard fearfully is to choke the flow. To give lovingly is to increase the stream. The spiritual law of supply recognizes the generous heart and amplifies its capacity. There are no accidents in the appearance of money. Every coin, every contract, every opportunity is a response to some law working within the invisible. If one finds sudden increase, it is because the spiritual laws have been obeyed, perhaps unconsciously, through rising thoughts, spoken words, or right actions. If one faces drought, it is a signal to examine the inner alignment. The law is impartial. It answers to the dominant vibration, whether that is hope or doubt, faith or fear. To speak of money as if it were scarce is to invoke the law of scarcity. To see obstacles where divine intelligence sees ways is to give power to the wrong belief. Instead, one must keep the mind attuned to the sufficiency that is always present. Hold fast to the truth that money is a servant, not a master, and that when the spiritual laws are mastered, the servant brings willingly, promptly, and in abundance, fulfilling every rightful need and desire with ease. Money obeys spiritual law. It does not respond to struggle, worry, or frantic pursuit. It responds to alignment with the invisible laws that govern all manifestation. Just as the seed obeys the law of growth, money obeys the law of supply. When the conditions of the law are met, the result is inevitable. The laws of the Spirit are as certain as the laws of mathematics. One may not see them with the eyes, but their effects are plain in the affairs of life. Those who live in harmony with them find that money flows naturally and without strain. Those who defy them, even unknowingly, find themselves in lack despite all effort. The law is impersonal. It does not favor one man over another. It does not pity nor punish. It simply reflects the state of consciousness. If a man holds a belief in poverty, the law fulfills that belief with precision. If a woman holds a belief in abundance, the law fulfills that belief with equal exactness. The substance of wealth exists in infinite measure, but it must be called forth by thought, word, and expectation. The spiritual law moves in response to the conviction behind the command. Half-hearted affirmations bring half-hearted results. A word spoken without belief is like a seed sown without care. It does not take root. When one understands that money is spiritual substance, taking the form of currency, goods, or opportunity, then one ceases to chase the shadow and instead aligns with the source. The shadow always follows the object that casts it. In the same way, money follows consciousness. If the consciousness is rich, the supply is rich. If the consciousness is barren, the supply is barren. No amount of outer work can permanently change the result until the inner pattern is changed to match abundance. Fear is the great breaker of the law. When a person says, "I am afraid there will not be enough," that fear is a command to the law to withhold. The law obeys the vibration of fear just as it obeys the vibration of faith. Worry is a form of negative prayer. It gives energy to the very condition one dreads. Faith, on the other hand, is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. To speak from faith is to set the law in motion toward abundance. The spoken word, backed by unwavering trust, becomes a decree the law must fulfill. Money does not come because one begs or pleads for it. Begging implies separation from the source. The law recognizes only ownership in the spirit. To declare, "I am wealthy now, and my supply is endless," is to take possession in consciousness, and once possession is taken inwardly, the outer must match it. This is not arrogance. It is spiritual authority. Every man has the right to his good, but that good must be claimed according to law. The one who waits for wealth without aligning with the law is like a farmer who waits for crops without planting seed. The circulation of money is part of the law. To withhold in fear is to cut off the flow. Giving in faith opens the channel wider. Money moves through channels, and the law finds the quickest, most perfect way to deliver it when there is no obstruction of doubt, fear, or greed. That which is sent out with joy returns multiplied. That which is clutched in fear diminishes. The law returns to each exactly what was sent forth, in thought, word, and action, for it must obey the consciousness that directs it. Fear blocks, faith attracts. These are not just words. They are spiritual laws in action. Fear is a belief in evil, in failure, in lack. It is faith turned upside down. It is an agreement with poverty, a silent contract with defeat. Every time one entertains fear, they are magnetizing the very thing they dread. Fear is a mold into which the substance of life is poured. What one fears, they often draw toward themselves, for the subconscious does not reason. It accepts every repeated thought as truth. The fearful person says, "I hope nothing goes wrong," but their inner voice whispers, "It already might," and that silent agreement becomes the blueprint for their experience. Faith, on the other hand, is a belief in the good, the unseen supply, the divine right outcome. Faith is the magnet that draws from the invisible into the visible. When you speak with faith, act with faith, and expect with faith, you are inviting prosperity with open arms. Faith is not blind. It sees more clearly than fear. It sees the invisible pattern behind the seen world and knows that the divine is always at work. Faith says, "Even though I do not yet see it, I know it is already mine." It is a quiet, unwavering conviction that all is well and all is coming. The fearful mind runs to action without alignment. trying to fix, push, or manipulate. It says, "If I don't hurry, I will lose everything." But the faithful mind waits in peace and acts in perfect timing. It says, "I trust that divine order is now arranging every detail in my favor." This is not laziness, it is spiritual certainty. When one moves from faith, they do not panic, they do not grasp. They know that what is theirs cannot be taken, and what is not theirs cannot be forced. In that calm knowing, they create the perfect conditions for supply to flow. Money is sensitive to vibration. It does not dwell long in a fearful atmosphere. It moves toward places of confidence, generosity, and peace. When you are afraid of losing money, you create a vibration of lack, and money begins to slip away. When you give thanks for the supply already on its way, you create a vibration of receiving, and money rushes in. The law does not fail, the vibration determines the result. The world may be shouting scarcity, but your inner world can remain anchored in abundance if you refuse to be moved by appearances. Fear speaks loudly, repeating, "What if? What if there's not enough? What if I fail? What if it all goes wrong?" Faith answers quietly but powerfully, "Even now, all is being prepared." The voice of fear leads to hesitation, self-sabotage, and poor choices. Faith leads to clarity, inspired action, and unexpected opportunities. One who fears cannot hear divine guidance clearly, for their channel is clouded by doubt. But one who has faith walks forward, even when the path is not lit, knowing that the next step will appear at the right time. Fear and faith cannot dwell in the same house. Where one is present, the other must depart. It is not enough to silence fear, you must replace it. Replace it with truth, with right words, with powerful affirmations that reshape your inner reality. Say, "I do not fear lack. My supply is secure. I walk in faith, not by sight." Repeat it until your subconscious accepts it as law. The outer will then follow the inner, as surely as day follows night. You are never punished for your fear, but you are always hindered by it. Fear binds the flow, faith releases it. Where fear sees obstacles, faith sees doorways. Where fear anticipates loss, faith expects increase. You choose your lens, you choose your vibration. What you expect, you prepare for. What you prepare for, you receive. The subconscious reflects wealth. It is the silent builder of your world, the invisible mirror that takes every image you impress upon it and brings it to life in form. The subconscious mind does not choose what is right or wrong, rich or poor. It simply accepts whatever is repeated with emotion, and it obeys without question. That is why it is not enough to wish for money. One must feel it, believe it, and live as though it is already theirs. The subconscious cannot be deceived by empty words. It responds only to the dominant vibration, carried with feeling and faith. If a person sees themselves as lacking, if they constantly entertain thoughts of not enough, of debts, of insufficiency, then their subconscious must reflect those beliefs into their outer life. They may speak of wealth, but if they feel unworthy of it or doubt its arrival, then the image impressed upon the inner mind is one of scarcity. The outer world is only the echo. The substance of all experience is first shaped in the hidden workshop of thought and feeling. And what is formed within must take shape without. There is a law that what you see on the inside, you shall see on the outside. The rich in consciousness are always rich in experience. Their subconscious has accepted the idea of wealth as natural, normal, and divine. They walk with the vibration of abundance, and the universe rushes to meet that signal. They may have begun in lack, but by consistently planting the right thoughts and watering them with faith, they have turned their subconscious into fertile soil for prosperity. You cannot hold two pictures in mind and expect only one to manifest. If you visualize wealth in the morning, but worry about bills all day, your dominant image is lack. The subconscious does not register isolated affirmations. It receives what is impressed with repetition, belief, and emotion. You must saturate your mind with the truth of your abundance until it becomes your identity. Speak it, Write it, imagine it, live it. Say, I am wealthy now. My subconscious is filled with ideas of prosperity. These words are not just affirmations. They are instructions to the most powerful creative force within you. The subconscious also responds to the images you allow through your senses. If you constantly see disorder, if you speak words of defeat, if you associate only with those who complain and fear, your inner world absorbs those impressions. But if you surround yourself with beauty, gratitude, and symbols of wealth, you are feeding your subconscious the pattern you want it to reproduce. Every thought is a blueprint. Every feeling is a builder. Every spoken word is a tool. Together, they shape the structure of your financial life. People often try to change their circumstances without changing their inner image, and they wonder why nothing changes. They act as if money is outside of them when in truth, it begins within. The outer is only a reflection, a shadow cast by the inner vision. To change the shadow, you must change the source. You must see yourself as the one who already possesses wealth. Not someday, not in theory, but now, in essence. The subconscious does not know the difference between what is real and what is vividly imagined. That is the secret power of vision. What you hold clearly in mind with faith becomes your reality. When you impress your subconscious with wealth, it begins to guide you, speak to you, and move through you in new ways. Ideas flow, opportunities arise, right action becomes natural. You are no longer forcing outcomes. You are following the path laid out by the silent agreement between your soul and the law. The subconscious is not asleep, it is listening. And what it hears most it must obey. Speak abundance, feel abundance, visualize abundance. The reflection must match the image.